Licensed home care service agencies, licensing issues. A couple of years ago, we talked about the backlog, about getting assisted living facilities licensed and opened, and that was about 3 years. We seem to have been moving pretty well on that now, but the LICSs are complaining that it's anywhere from 3 to 3.5 years to move along. We all know it costs less to take care of somebody in their home than moving to a nursing home. So how big's the backlog, and what are we doing to address it?
So we'll have to look at the backlog on that, but we are trying to move this quicker, and I agree with you that it is better to have someone cared for at home, and we're trying to make sure that we provide the services that are.
And we get that tax revenue.
We
too.
need numbers. I get it.
All right. Thank you. With respects to hospitals, ER was mentioned. The $195 million from last year's capital money, a lot of it hasn't been released yet. When can the hospitals expect to get that?
We should be seeing shortly. I'm within the quarter.
Okay. Elimination of the nursing home beds obviously is raising some concern. The hold.
Right.
Do you foresee any problems with that, or do we think we just have a lot of open beds that somebody can be slid
I'll
into?
start, and then I'm going to turn this to Jason. The issue with the nursing bed hold is that clearly, we recognize that when someone goes into a hospital, may need to go back to a facility, but there's been a lot of money that person is going into the hospital, and that bed is sitting there, and they get reimbursed for that money for that bed, and the amount that they need to cover that bed is not that much. And so we're trying to streamline this a little bit more. But do you want to add?
Yeah. So we reduced the payment a few years ago, and because it creates a perverse incentive, which is that nursing home can reduce its staffing. As a result of having a regular churn of patients being churned out of the nursing home into other settings because they only have to staff for the actual census of the day. And that kind of incentive we are strongly trying to avoid. And that's why you see this proposal, which is at the end of the day, we want to reduce the number of individuals who have to go into hospitals. And we think there's opportunities and projects, including those funded through DSHRIP, that are available to help get better connections between nursing homes and other providers to reduce the need for that kind of churn.
Okay, thanks. Moving on to pharmacy. In developing the new pharmacy dispensing professional fees to offset the new benchmark, which I think you're saying is about 55 million that we're going to save. What surveys are we relying on? Are we still relying on that 2012, I call it the Superstorm Sandy survey, to come up with those prices?
The answer is I'm aware of the, we don't internally refer to it as that, something, but I would say that that is not the survey. Actually, what the benchmarks that are going to be set, and as I said earlier, the focus here is on a very small subset of drugs that have extremely high costs. And the idea there is to say, across all payers, what really is the appropriate cost? And that looks at a variety of different sources of information, including information from the nonprofit, very respected Institute for Clinical and Economic Review, which does specific analysis looking at the relative effectiveness of drugs and basically helps states and other purchasers to really understand what's the economic value of a new drug and what should be an appropriate price for that. We have been using those sources, lots of payers have, but the governor's proposal allows us, in essence, to utilize that information with even more strength. I would point out that nothing about this policy is going to impact pharmacists. This is really about ensuring that it's really about the state and manufacturers.
Okay, now, but there's a pharmacy professional fee in there?
So there's a separate proposal, which is a requirement that we're just complying with, which is to, in essence, comply with federal rules relative to pharmacy payments at the point of sale. And it's a requirements around us moving to really a cost-based system. And there's some new sources of information that states and other payers can use for reimbursing pharmacy both on the ingredient side as well as on the dispensing side. And what you see in the proposal is a change in both of those. I believe there's actually a net increase in the amount. Maybe it's a small net decrease, but it's an increase in the dispensing rate as well as some savings that somewhat offset that on the ingredient side, thanks to the use of a different measure of prices, not AWP.
But it seems, from what I've seen with respects to southern and midwestern states that are at $11, $12, $13, that ours is less than that, but yet quite clearly it costs more to do business in New York State.
We looked at a number of comparable states. I believe our proposal is $10 on the dispensing, which obviously is considerably higher than it is today. You know, we'd be happy to work with you and provide you more information on the sources and information we used.